And our next speaker, in opposition is Kevin Worthington. Okay, our next speaker.
Is Kevin here?
It appears not. Our next speaker in opposition is Christine Parker.
Okay. Oh boy, I'm tall. It's nice to be tall.
Amen.
It is, it is. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Good morning. My name is Christine Parker, and I'm a long-term resident of Crown Heights. I am also the candidate for the 35th District. I'm the Republican candidate on that ticket. That may or may not be acceptable here. However, what concerns me most importantly is the thought that the Bedford Armory is a deal that is certainly not structured for our community. Our community is already a community that has the highest rate of homelessness in the County of Kings right now. I am uncertain about the number of eviction cases that have been filed, but I am sure that it's somewhere 26,000 to 30,000 people have been evicted in this community. This particular deal, as it stands, needs to be reviewed wholeheartedly. I am all for and support of a community land trust. And just like my peer Bertha Lewis, I do believe that it's a viable option for this community that desperately needs housing. We were promised by the developer that there would be an opportunity to review this current position. And here we are today where the Brooklyn Borough President is against the deal in its current position. Our current City Council administration has noted that she would be against it or for reevaluating the current position of the Armory. However, this community is not for it. We have fought for it. The Community Board 9 has voted it down, and here we are again, it seems to me, begging for our lives for something that's already ours. So I am so against moving ahead with a development which gives no jobs, no viability for the community to have its own say in what happens to us. And so what I'm saying, clearly today, I stand on reviewing the deal, if not killing the deal, but I stand for a community land trust for the community in the 35th District. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from Ms. Parker? Nope, you're fine. Thank you.
Is there any questions?
No,
I know that everyone's answered it, but I mean, I can go on and on if you want to talk a little bit more.
Thank you, Ms.
Please
Parker.
ask me any questions why I feel this way as a Republican, but I feel this way very strongly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker in opposition is Alicia Boyd.
Good morning. My name is Alicia Boyd. I represent the Movement to Protect the People.
Can't hear you.
Good morning. My name is Alicia Boyd. I represent the people, an organization called the Movement to Protect the People. On June 27, 2017, Community Board 9 Chairman Musa Moore read the following motion for the vote on the Bedford Union Armory. This is a land use application. The presentation was by BFC Partners for their land plan for the Bedford Union Armory. So the motion on the floor is for that. And a yes will be giving them the support, a no will be against it, and abstain is staying quiet. All right, cool, let's take the vote. At the time of this vote, there were over 400 people in the attendance, media outlets and newspaper reporters and several cameras recording the event. However, despite all of the attention and documentation available to show what the actual vote was, Michael Liebert, who is the chairman of the Land Use Committee of CB9, illegally changed the CB9's vote and stated on the official application that CB9 voted a no with modifications. and then proceeded to supply city planning, known as DCP, with a list of modifications. According to the City Charter, Article 197C, Section E2, the community boards must prepare and submit a written recommendation directly to DCP. The City Charter, Article 2801, Section B, states that the decisions of a community board are derived from commencing an open meeting with quorum present and a majority vote. We believe Michael Liebert and Musa Moore, who had to be given consent, did this change because DCP, according to 197C, Section E2, actually has 3 options when it comes to voting or considering community boards' recommendations: yes, no, or yes with modifications. And thus, a no is treated as a no, and everything else is treated as a yes or a yes with modifications. As proof of this atrocious act, in violation of the laws governing community boards, I am submitting a notarized transcript of the motion and final vote. I am also attaching a notarized statement of a person who attended and witnessed the CB9 vote. Because the City Charter, Article 197C, Section I, directs DCP to create procedures and policies, and these were violated and broken, we, the community, believe it is your responsibility to make a determination regarding this fabrication and voter tampering, and we demand that before this application is moved forward to the City Council and the Mayor's office, that DCP conduct an investigation into this vote and make a determination if CB9's recommendations is lawful and legal. We also believe one of the root causes of this submission is the fact that Musa Moore, who is the chairman of CB9, and who has to approve this application submission, is a real estate lobbyist. And the changing of the Community Board 9 vote is in support of the real estate industry against the community.
Thank you, Ms. Boyd.
Musa Moore got his position as a real estate lobbyist at the same time he became the chairman of CB9 and has already gotten over $100,000 for his work.
Ms. Boyd, you would feel free to submit your written testimony.
We hope that DCP, despite having Musa Moore employers lobby you, will act accordingly to ensure that the public confidence is maintained as a governmental agency whose job it is to make decisions based upon facts and lawful applications submitted to them. I have a video.
Thank you, Ms. Boyd. Any questions for Ms. Boyd?
I have a video clip.
Please feel free to submit it, Ms. Boyd, but we do need to continue
I have a
with the
video
public
clip
hearing.
that shows exactly the vote that was taken on that night,
Ms. Boyd, you
which
should feel
it shows
free,
that the vote was a straight no,
Ms. Boyd, you should feel free to
and
submit
that
the
there
video
was
clip.
no mention of no with modifications. And this commission has the duty, the legal duty, to make sure that all submissions by every party is legal and binding.
Thank you,
We're
Ms.
saying
Boyd.
that CB9's vote has not been recorded correctly, and we're demanding that you do something.
Thank you, Ms. Boyd. Our next speaker. Our next speaker in opposition is Enola McGuire.
Good morning. I was a long-term resident of Brooklyn, so I'm familiar with Crown Heights. I have had friends who lived in Crown Heights. Because of high rent, they had to leave the state. So I think it is a very important situation where your agency decide to investigate what is going on. Instead of speaking to the politicians, go and speak to the people, because there are seniors who are suffering. There are people who are educated and they do not have jobs. How can you pay rent when you do not have a job? And you know New York City is not really helping adults, young and middle-aged people, to find training in order for them to be employed. So I think it is very important for you to take this matter into serious consideration. And the rate of which people are leaving Crown Heights, there are not going to be children available for recreational purposes. So I think the whole deal need to be re-evaluated or scrapped entirely. So this is my position.
Thank you, Ms. McGuire. Questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. As I stated at the beginning, we will now revert to testimony in support and then again go back to testimony in opposition. Our next speaker in support is William Howard.
My name is William Howard, and I'm president of the West Indian American Day Carnival Association out in Brooklyn. If you notice, we've just finished up our carnival season, and we had upwards of 2 million people in Crown Heights, and we all got back home safely this year without too many issues. I'm in support of the development of the Bedford Armory, largely because of the nonprofit aspect of that armory. We at West Indian American Day Carnival have approximately 10,000 kids in programs during the summer and the spring that, of course, we get no support from the city or the state for those direct programs. And for the culture of 32 countries surrounding the Caribbean Sea, it is important that we continue the 50-year legacy that we just completed. This legacy was begun, excuse me?
Go ahead. Continue. Disregard.
Oh, okay. This legacy was started some 50 years ago by the late Shirley Chisholm, which I was on the staff. Fast forward, we've been able to take care of her heritage as a Caribbean person based on the carnival. We've been able to take care of her heritage based on the isolation of everything that she did in her lifetime. We've been able to take care of it to the extent that I was able to get the Presidential Medal of Freedom from President Obama for it. And I tried to change the $20 bill, but I didn't get too far. And I'll tell you just one joke and I'll sit down. But I am supportive of that armory. The reason President Obama was able to sort of pick me out of the millions of people in America talking about Shirley Chisholm every day is because I told the government that we would increase the spending in America if they would change the $20 bill to the late Shirley Chisholm. And they wanted to know why. And I said there are people in the country that would not have a $20 bill in their pocket with Shirley Chisholm on it, so they would spend a $50. So we 2.5 times that. So taking care of the carnival like we do, this year we had 46 bands on the Parkway. We had 35 children's band at the Children's Carnival. Our joint venture partner is the Children's Museum. We currently pay market rate rent in Crown Heights, and it is for us to get 3,500 square feet of space at $6.50 a square feet. My colleagues tell me it's not going to work, but I'm going to wait to see if it will in fact work. But I ask you to vote forward and move this project fast as quick as you possibly can. And one issue on the housing issue, some years ago, it was not affordable housing, it was redlining. And I recall the legislators in those days gave me $50 million and some other people $50 million in each borough. And we reviewed each mortgage application. I think that in addition to affordable housing, which is not going to happen because I looked at the model from the Barclays Center, and the Barclays Center took 10 years to produce 1 unit of affordable housing. I asked at the community board, would they have the rent at the current rate? They said no, so it's 10 years later anyway. So I think that if there is not some real pressure put on for affordable housing, it's not going to happen.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Any questions, Mr. Howard?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Clarissa Martin. Is she here? Okay.
Good morning. Is it still morning?
It is.
Afternoon.
Okay, good morning. I'm Clarissa Martin, just representing Camper House. That's where I live now. I've been in the shelter system for like 9 months before I got there. But I connected with my SA, my HASA worker, which is HRA for people who's HIV positive. And she sent me to the housing special, it was called Chat. Chat connected me to New York City Housing Connect. And that's how I got affiliated with Camper House in Garden 2. And I've been going there, and I was so happy. I was so happy to finally get out the shelter system. When I was in the shelter system, I was going to Pillar Post. And when they said, come and sign that lease and take your key, and we'll show you an apartment. Now it says studio apartment, 1-bedroom apartment, I don't care, as long as it's mine. I was very grateful. And I don't know what everybody else is talking about here. I'm just talking about me. And I hope they don't oppose what I'm talking about. She was tough. But I ain't never been in front of no commissioners before. It's a lot of y'all to talk about me. Anyway, they have these groups there. Mondays I go to group. It's talk about it. Let's talk about it. That's Mr. Gerard's group. We talk about politics. I can't wait till next Monday to talk about this shit here. I'm sorry. And I can't wait to talk. We talk about, we got the power of paying forgiveness. And there's a lot of people with mental illnesses that lives in my building. And we're HIV positive. We have a lot of things going on. So those groups is very valid to me. They're very, very special for me because I can interact with people who are just like me. So the Power and Forgiveness group allows me to let go some stuff, channels me on how I should let go some stuff, channeling how to be forgiving some self, especially myself. I'm always got to forgive myself. And then we got this other group on Tuesday. That's run by Miss Stevenson, and that was the Power of Forgiveness. And it's another group, Miss Izzy Go. Oh yeah, she takes us on trips. We go to the baseball games. We go outside. We do a tour and talk of the whole community over there on Winthrop Avenue. And we use the Wingate area right there, the park, where we get up in the mornings and we do exercise. Then I like the backyard. It's a good ambiance they have in the backyard because I could go back there and sit in one of the beach chairs and just chill out and relax and do my book study. I'm in recovery, so I do a lot of book study, me and my sponsor. And it's right around the corner from my primary care. So I just go hop around the corner to downstate. I go see my psychiatrist, I go to my therapist, I go see my medical, get my little HIV meds, and I'm off to the races. I go stipend, I've got a stipend paid job, so on the groups I go to, it's only on Monday and Tuesdays. And Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I do outreach. So I just want to thank whoever opened up Camber Gardens too. I just need to thank them to allow a person like me to live in society very productively. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions from Ms. Martin? Our next speaker in support is Brian Brown.
Hello, good morning, Commissioners. My name is Bryant, and I am here speaking on behalf of the over 16,000 32BJ SEIU members that both live and work in Crown Heights. And I'm here speaking in favor of this project because the development team has committed to providing good quality building service jobs. These jobs will pay family-sustaining wages with good benefits for local residents. The developers have also committed to staffing half of the permanent jobs with low-income residents and to creating a new job training program that will help Crown Heights residents to enter into careers in building service. That's why 32BJ SEIU supports BFC's redevelopment. Together, we believe that we can all use ULURP as an opportunity to ensure that the community gets a say in how the development proceeds. Thank you.
Questions from Mr. Brown? Commissioner Deleuze.
Hi, thanks for being here. I'm just wondering, earlier the representative from BFC mentioned that there's at least a tentative agreement between BFC and 32BJ to provide services. Is that in both the rental portion and the condo portion, or just in the condo portion?
That is my understanding, both.
Okay, thank you.
But I'm happy to follow up and double check.
Thank you. Other questions? Thank you, Mr. Brown. Our next speaker in support is Varan Sanal. Our next speaker in support is Eldad Gothel. Our next speaker in support is Alexandria Fennell. No?
Opposition.
Okay, well then we can start now with speakers in opposition. I'm sorry, I have the form that said in support, I'll change it.
That's okay. Just to be, very clear, I'm very much in opposition to this project. My name is Alexandra Fennell, and I am the network organizer at Churches United for Fair Housing. I'm also here on behalf of the Broadway Triangle Coalition. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the Bedford Armory project, which our coalition is firmly opposed to. From East Harlem to Crown Heights, East New York, and Williamsburg, New Yorkers are crying out that we are experiencing de facto segregation. Some of our most beloved streets and avenues are essentially walls dividing communities by race, income, and opportunities. Widespread real estate speculation, rising rents, and displacement are sweeping across North Brooklyn, and it is the city's highest responsibility to guarantee and enforce fair housing rights for communities of color. Under federal law, the city is not only required to avoid perpetuating deeply entrenched segregation in Brooklyn, but also required to actively promote the integration of our communities pursuant to the Fair Housing Act's affirmatively furthering fair housing requirement. However, the Department of City Planning has a record of failing to uphold its duty to affirmatively furthering fair housing, as it fails to account for the racial impact of secondary displacement when it considers rezoning applications, such as the Bedford Armory project and another proposed rezoning, the Pfizer proposal, which we, the Broadway Triangle Coalition, have been actively fighting. The Bedford Armory project will spark heightened patterns of harassment, evictions, discrimination of low-income tenants of color. In many ways, the Bedford Armory project mimics the discriminatory effects of the Pfizer rezoning in the Broadway Triangle area of North Brooklyn. Our coalition is vehemently opposed to both. In the Pfizer development, more than 80% of the units will go to families earning 2 or 3 times more than Black and Latino families of Williamsburg, Bushwick, and Bedford-Stuyvesant. Similarly, 80% of the Bedford Armory condos, market rate rentals, and even the so-called affordable units will exclude the poorest of the Crown Heights community, those which happen to be predominantly Black and Latino. The American Community Survey has identified income gaps of more than 15,000 between white and Black households and 25,000 between white and Latino households in Crown Heights in 2015. By allowing the construction of 318 residential units that will exclude Black and Latino families, the city is simply promoting segregation. Nowhere is it more crucial to pursue the creation of affordable housing, recreational services, and good-paying jobs than on publicly owned property. Our coalition witnessed the rezoning of the Broadway Triangle urban renewal area, which illegally favored the housing of large Hasidic families over Black and Latino families, resulting in a court-ordered injunction for violation of fair housing laws. We will not stay idle while another piece of public land is rezoned, which would wrongly provide large windfalls to the private sector in spite of the widespread opposition of Crown Heights and Brooklyn residents at every town hall and hearing organized so far. The City Commission must acknowledge its responsibility to encourage integration and fight against entrenched segregation. They must engage with the community on comprehensive urban planning that looks to proactively reduce segregation and displacement, rather than rubber stamping harmful rezoning applications like the Bedford Armory project and the Pfizer rezoning. Although this commission has already shamefully advanced the proposal for the Pfizer application, our coalition hopes that you'll not make the same mistake with the Bedford Armory. We hope that the Bedford Armory project will be rebooted. The process will be rebooted so that the actions that disproportionately affect communities of color will not proceed. The city must allow for real community-based planning processes and incorporating the mandates of fair housing action in your work. The city must uphold the right to housing for every single New Yorker and not just those who can afford luxury housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bell. Our next speaker in opposition is Jabani Brisport.
Repeat it.
Jabani Brisport.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for holding this hearing this morning. My name is Jabari Brisport. I am a candidate for City Council in New York's 35th District, which includes the Bedford Union Armory. I am also a resident of Prospect Heights, where I grew up and where my family's lived for 3 generations. I'm here this morning because we've seen this story before. We've seen this in Prospect Heights. We've seen it with the Atlantic Yards development. We even see it now with the Pacific Park development, where there is luxury housing being sold to people who don't even live in the United States as an investment vehicle. And I'm here today because when people shout kill this deal, it's not NIMBYism. It's not because we don't know better. It's not because of the mayor's contention that if people in Crown Heights just understood the good amenities they were getting, they would support the deal. We shout it because we know we've seen this pattern before where luxury developments go up and poor people get pushed out. So when I'm here today, I'm here because I'm standing today because I've listened to arguments on both sides, and I believe there's a faux dichotomy here. Because when I hear people say they're in support of this project, I don't hear anyone saying they're in support of the housing there. I don't hear anyone saying they're in support of the condos or the market rate housing, and it's possible in the community land trust model to have both. We could have affordable housing and the amenities that this community so deeply deserves. I stand here as an anti-capitalist because, 1, capitalism brought black people here as capital, and 2, because capitalism is the driving force of gentrification. I stand here today because I am opposed to the selling off of public land, just as I would be opposed to the selling off of pieces of the ocean. I would be selling off the pieces of the air. We need to keep it public and in community control. And I'm not sure if anybody from BFC is still here or in the back, but my biggest question is just a reiteration of the financials. I would love to know how much BFC makes a year and how much they are expecting to make off of this project.
If you could address your comments to the Commission, Ms.
Sure.
Brisport. Thank you.
Commissioners, if you know, what is BFC's annual revenue and what is their expected annual revenue off of this project?
Again, it's for the Commission. We'll be asking you questions. We
Sure.
will gladly listen to your testimony.
Questions?
Questions for Mr. Brisport? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker in opposition is Jason Tabor.
Good morning, or almost afternoon by now, I'm not sure. My name is Jason Tabor. I serve a congregation in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. And so I'm here really to reiterate and put some specifics around the argument that you've heard from a number of these guys so far, talking about displacement that is brought about by these projects. And again, serving a congregation in Williamsburg, I want to say that's not hypothetical. It's not doom and gloom. In the congregation that I serve, small congregation, small community organization, as there are all over Crown Heights and other neighborhoods in the city, we've seen in the last decade or so that this has been happening in Williamsburg. About 50% of our congregation forced out. I have members who have grown up 50, 60 years in that neighborhood, now displaced to places like Far Rockaway, Jamaica, parts of New Jersey, one's in a homeless shelter in the Bronx. We found out, had actually one of our most involved members found an affordable housing unit in Buffalo, which is a long way from here. That doesn't make any sense to me. If we have to go all the way to Buffalo to find affordable housing, something is wrong. Again, I want to say that this is not hypothetical. We've seen this trick play out in Williamsburg time and again, where developers come forward offering things that sound great, nonprofit space and lovely parks and all these things. Guess what? The people who would benefit from them aren't around, and so again, this is a trick that's been honed in Williamsburg. We've seen it play out again and again, where actually there isn't a net benefit, because the destruction to the fabric of the neighborhood, the destruction to so many community organizations that are there is catastrophic. 50% of our congregation is catastrophic to us, and so many other small organizations in the community as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions? Thank you for your
Thanks.
testimony. Our next speaker in opposition is Justice Favor.
Still morning time?
Under the wire.
Lunchtime for me, right, I guess not. Good morning, board. My name is Justice Favor. I represent Laborers Local 79, proud union member. I'm going to actually read a testimony for one of my members that unfortunately couldn't be here. Well, first off, we have about 300 members that live in that district alone, several hundreds. Her name is Tiara Williams. Thank you, Chair Logo and the City Planning Commission for the opportunity to testify today regarding the proposed Bedford Union Army redevelopment. My name is Tiara Williams, and I am a proud Crown Heights resident and member of Laborers Local 79. I grew up near the Bedford Union Armory and therefore intimately understand what is at stake for our community, for my community with this project. From rising rents to low-paying jobs, family all over Crown Heights are fighting to make ends meet and desperately in need of good jobs and affordable housing. However, the current Bedford Union Armory redevelopment plan from BFC partners will not address any of these issues, but rather further exacerbate them. The redevelopment of the Bedford Union Armory has the power to uplift Crown Heights, but only if we as a city and community demand more from this project. 56 luxury million-dollar condos and affordable housing based on the area median income that includes Westchester and Long Island. Who here can afford that? Not my friends, not my family. We must push for deeper affordability and more affordable housing units, as opposed to accepting a plan with luxury condos and that Crown Heights residents cannot afford. Furthermore, the current plan for the Armory doesn't include any local hire provisions or details on the labor and safety standards for those that will be building a new housing and recreational center. As our city is facing an epidemic on construction fatalities, it is imperative BFC partners commit to using workers that have undergone safety training. A trained worker is safe on the job and for the community they're building in. But BFC track record on working with subcontractors that exploit workers and have safety violations shows they don't care about what's best for Crown Heights, just their bank account. As a member of Laborers Local 79, I would love the opportunity to work on this project and help improve my neighborhood. But as I mentioned earlier, to date, BFC has not committed to using a skilled workforce or even workers from within this community. A project of this size has the power to uplift countless families and change the course of rampant unemployment and homelessness for our community. But not if BFC continue on their path they're currently on with this dead-end plan. Simply, Crown Heights deserves better. I urge the City Planning Commission to reject BFC plan for the Bedford Armory.
Thank you.
Any questions? I was hoping we have some labor, some construction questions. I see she asked questions for 32BJ union. All right, construction union matters as well.
I'd be happy to ask you a question.
Commissioner Dillon.
Yes, please.
So I don't know if you know the answer, though. Local 79, had there been conversations between the developer and Local 79 at all, to your knowledge?
No.
Okay.
No one reached out to Local 79. BFC is back there. I know these individuals well. They still haven't opened any dialogue, healthy dialogue in that regards.
And when you do engage in partnerships with developers, can you talk a little bit about what your local outreach is to the local community to try to have local residents get access to those jobs?
Absolutely. Like last year, we just recruited about 2,000 members. Like I said, we're very inclusive, very diverse. We have several rates that are flexible that can get into a residential as well as affordable housing as well. So the problem is sometimes we're lumped in terms of our inclusion, in terms of our rate scale. But, you know, the message, the narrative need to change. And if we're unable to do that, if these questions are not asked, if there's not an open dialogue. Over the past 2 years, we had about 36 deaths on construction sites, 33 of them on non-union construction sites. You know, 93 of them are Latino workers, 85% of them were immigrant workers. Talk about that.
79 does asbestos removal, is that correct?
Our sister local, which is Local 78, does that.
Sorry, I confused it. Okay, thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Efron.
Thank you for your testimony. We heard earlier from a gentleman involved with By the Numbers. Have you been working with them in the Crown Heights area or in central Brooklyn?
No, I have not.
Other questions? Thank you, Mr. Faber.
Thank you.
Our next speaker in opposition is Joel Kupferman.
Good morning. I'm legal counsel, New York Environmental Law and Justice Project, representing DADDY, Disown the Army Deal Initiative. We're here to challenge the current proposed Bedford Union Armory project. This objection is based on the insufficiency of its environmental assessment and proposed remediation of the construction, renovation, demolition phases. Additionally, the project fails to meet the express needs of the community. Our first reason for opposition stems from the environmental assessment. Totally deficient. This mischaracterized its imminent danger posed by the contaminants and pollution that will emanate from the project's construction. The environmental assessment underestimates the high probability that presumed asbestos-containing materials are present throughout the building, particularly in the structure's roof. OSHA, Occupational Health and Safety Administration, New York City DEP, and EPA standards require the assumption of asbestos present in the buildings constructed before the 1980s because of its high frequency of its application prior to this period. Since the Armory was constructed in the early 1900s, this criterion has been readily met and calls for caution, extreme caution. Our experiences in the field of environmental law and enforcement support the call for heightened assessment and greater precautions. The proposed construction will more than likely disturb large quantities of asbestos present and greatly risk the contamination of the surrounding area if not properly remediated and controlled. Historically and presently, asbestos contamination threatens the lives and health of the construction workers and community workers alike, not only but within the surrounding building, but the community. Because of these risks, this project must not proceed without additional testing, assessment, and a proper health and safety plan for asbestos and other hazardous substances. This is definitely a risky endeavor. My criticism comes from a lot of experience. We're sitting here on Chambers Street. I was the one that got brought down to the World Trade Center that picked up the samples, and we found high levels of asbestos. The City of New York and EPA told us that there was no asbestos. This building was contaminated and probably still is contaminated. So I have this big fear that we have this protocol that the city uses that when they discover asbestos during a project, they either stop or they don't stop it, but they let the construction continue. When we go into court, the other side lines up, the builders line up, and they said, look how many construction dump trucks we have. It's minor, we're not going to test, would you keep on going? There's an unbelievable amount of asbestos here. It should be tested before, not after, and not during the site. The precautions have to go in. It takes a lot of planning and a lot of foresight. We can't let another project go through. People who live in Manhattan and Brooklyn, especially after 9/11, are aware of not just improper assessment, but improper remediation plans. The Deutsche Bank building that was hit by the World Trade Center, Deutsche Bank spent $33 million to test that building to show that was contaminated. And they still went into court fighting their insurance companies. What do we have here?
Thank you, Mr. Kupferman.
Any questions?
Questions for Mr. Kupferman? Thank you.
Okay, I just want to say one more thing. What's important...
I'm afraid, Mr. Kupferman, we have...
Submit it.
Oh, you have it? Okay.
And actually, if you have written testimony, please do submit it.
Okay. Thank you.
We now have our final speaker in support, Lisa Gowan.
Good morning. I'm here to talk about Canva. My name is Lisa Gaon. Canva makes New York City a vibrant and safe place to live by helping 45,000 New Yorkers in need obtain jobs find affordable housing, and raise happy, healthy families each year. Canberra is a Brooklyn-based nonprofit that has been around for 40 years this year and has grown today to encompass over 160 programs at 90 locations throughout the city. We offer innovative, evidence-based initiatives in 6 program areas, ranging from economic development, education and youth development, family support, health, housing, and legal services. Canberra currently operates 12 community centers throughout the 5 boroughs, including 3 beacons and 9 cornerstones, which are located in NYCHA facilities across Brooklyn. Canberra offers diverse programming that engage over 6,300 children, youth, and parents, and members each year based on community interests and amenities that are available. Canberra offers unique services and opportunities that spark youth creativity talent, like archery, dance and step, robotics, film, and music production is just some samples. For adults, we offer ESL classes, financial literacy workshops, fitness classes, and tax prep services. Our community centers employ 180 staff, full-time staff and part-time, many of whom live in the communities where we are. We coordinate and manage the activities of over 50 different co-located service providers and partnering agencies. Our approach to programming those centers is similar to our thinking for Bedford Courts. We try to create holistic programs that are responsive to what the community wants. Canberra has been operating the Bed-Stuy Multi-Service Center, which is 150,000 square feet facility since 2012, which is owned by HRA, and it includes 13 nonprofit tenants and also a school. HRA just renewed our lease for an additional 3 years, and at the Multi-Service Center, we service almost 4,000 clients each month. Canberra oversees daily operations and upkeep of the facility, is responsible for leasing the office space, security for the premises, maintenance, and marketing. Tenants and the community at large, including for-profit and nonprofit groups, can also rent the conference rooms, whether it be for job fairs, interviews, meetings, or conferences. There's also an auditorium that can be rented for graduations, talent shows, spelling bees, really for the community. The schoolyard also has special events like back-to-school fairs and fitness programs for the community. We are always looking for new high-quality youth development programs that could attract young people's attention, allow them to develop leadership skills, challenge them to learn something new, and have fun. To gain a deeper understanding of community needs to engage residents in program activities, we develop relationships and work very closely with the local residents of the community, the associations, participating in meetings and incorporating feedback from them into our program design for each community, since each community is so different and diverse.
Thank you, Ms. Gowan.
Okay.
Questions? Yes, Commissioner Efron.
Thank you. I'm familiar with Canberra's great work on social service, but I'm unfamiliar with your work with regard to physical culture in any way. Do you operate any gyms, swimming programs, basketball, any of the other elements that will make this project a success if it goes through?
So like I was speaking about, the Bed-Stuy Multi-Service Center is the facility closest to that at the Armory, which incorporates nonprofit tenants, and we staff it.
I meant
Could you speak into the microphone?
specifically swimming, basketball, gyms, the elements that are part of this. Does Canberra operate any centers with that?
No, but that's why we're working in conjunction with BFC, with their facility manager.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Those are all of the speakers who have signed up to speak, but if there is anyone else present in the audience who would like to speak, please approach the podium now. Okay, if not, I will note that the record on this matter will remain... Oh, yes, there is. Welcome.
Hi, good morning, Chair Lago and Commissioners. I'm Varun Sanyal, and I'm the Vice President of Economic Development at the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce. I'm here representing our President and CEO, Andrew Hone, of the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce. And the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce is a membership-based business assistance organization that represents the interests of our member businesses, but also businesses across the borough of Brooklyn. I would like to express our support for the proposal being heard today. It is no secret that Central Brooklyn has for decades lacked the kind of robust neighborhood investment that is already benefiting other areas in the borough. We think it's time for that change. Redeveloping the Bedford Union Armory offers a once-in-a-generation opportunity to address local challenges and strengthen central Brooklyn communities. This proposal will transform the space into a true neighborhood anchor and offers new community programming, creates good jobs, and provides quality mixed income housing and office space for nonprofits, and really generates a kind of real investment that both residents need and deserve. At a time when many Crown Heights residents are rightly demanding a more equitable future and a better quality of life, we believe this proposal to revitalize the Bedford Union Armory will help address these demands. Andrew Hone also served as the Director of Economic Development for former Brooklyn Borough President Marty Markowitz. And under Marty Markowitz's behest, NYU Wagner commissioned a study in 2012 to study the Bedford Union Armory. And this proposed project closely follows the ideas set forth. The study, based on understanding the building's history, exhaustive research on the challenges facing the neighborhood, and extensive community outreach, developed one primary recommendation for the former armory: a multi-purpose recreation center and community center. Again, the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce supports the application from Bedford Courts LLC for the Bedford Union Armory redevelopment. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll once again ask if there are others present who would want to be heard on this matter. Okay, then I will note that the record is going to remain open through Friday, the 29th of September. And with that, the public hearing is closed.
Borough of the Bronx, calendar numbers 23.
Actually, Madam Secretary, if I might, before that, this is a highly unusual matter. We have something that is being added to the agenda that the Commission is unaware of, and it is calendar number 0, in the matter of a request for retirement by Commissioner Erwin Cantor of Queens, New York. Whereas Commissioner Cantor has had a distinguished engineering career and was active for many years in his local community, and whereas Commissioner Cantor was appointed to the City Planning Commission in May of 1994 by Queensborough President Claire Schulman, and whereas since that time he has, according to Department of City Planning data, voted on over 750 city planning actions, and whereas he has given wise counsel to 4 City Planning Commission chairs and 3 Queensborough presidents, and whereas he has helped define the fabric of the commission in a manner that is sensitive to his context and reinforced the character of this neighborhood, therefore be it resolved that the City Planning Commission and Department of City Planning staff declare Commissioner Erwin Cantor to be a treasured New York City landmark and wish him the best. All in favor? Aye.
Madam Chair, can we hear from the opposition?
The silence is deafening, Commissioner.
I've been on the commission 18 years. That's a long time. 18 is an important number in the Jewish faith, and it's interesting that it comes this week. It means life. I have had a good life on my professional basis. I've had a good life when it comes to city planning. I've had a great education. When I started city planning, I was merely a structural engineer, and I really didn't know too much about city planning. As time went on, my engineering capabilities or my engineering desires suddenly turned, and I realized that there are things that are more than brick and mortar. And when we look at projects, in the old days I'd look at a project, I'd say, oh, here's a job. Now it's going to get filed up at the city. Today I look at a job and I see how many people are we helping, how many people are we hurting. There's a great difference, and I'll miss that opportunity to participate in that. With regard to my fellow commissioners, the talent on this commission is actually, to use a Donald, not to be believed. These people are knowledgeable, they're educated, they're passionate, they listen. We can't always come up with the right answers. Sometimes, like in any other endeavor, there's a trade-off. But what we saw today is a typical day in the communities which have the opportunity to say their piece, be heard by us respectfully, and then voted on accordingly. So I want to thank all of my commission friends and members and all of the public who are here and who applauded. I wish you all Godspeed, and I'm going to try and have a good time.
Well, thank you, Madam Secretary, for letting us take that break from normal order. We can now continue.
Okay. Borough of the Bronx, calendar numbers 23 and 24. Calendar number 23, CD9, C170392ZMX. Calendar number 24, N170393ZRX. Public hearing in the matter of applications for zoning map and zoning text amendments concerning 1965 Lafayette Avenue rezoning.
Our first speaker in support is Joshua Siegel.
Thank you, a moment to put up the boards. Okay, thank you. Thanks for the commissioner for meeting with us today. About our application, the Europe application. First, to give you a little context, the building, I am Josh Siegel. I run development for the Stera Company, so the owner of this building and the site. Just to give you some context in terms of the site, it's in the Soundview section of the Bronx. It's got, the current building is 1965 Lafayette Avenue, so it's Lafayette Avenue to the south, White Plains Road to the west, Turnbull to the north, and Pugsley Avenue to the east. White Plains Road, as you probably realize, is kind of one of the main commercial thoroughfares, retail commercial thoroughfares in the Bronx. As it exists right now, we have a 353-unit Mitchell Llama built in the early 1970s. It is kind of a, quote, tower in the park zoning. So there are large parking lots both on the eastern side and the western side of the building. Currently, there are 141 spots on the eastern part of the zoning lot and 79 spots on the western part of the zoning lot for 220 total spots. Currently, 180 of those are occupied, even given the kind of relatively low rents for parking. There's also, in the corner, which you can't see here, there's a basketball court maybe you can see it here a little bit. There's a basketball court in the northwest corner. And the building has actually two pools in the back of the building, kind of a paddle pool and a kiddie pool, as it were. Our kind of plan is kind of a two-in-one plan. Our plan is to do I'm not really going to speak about it, is to do a preservation transaction on the existing building, but more importantly, what we're proposing is a new 14-story building, which is really kind of two buildings in one. The first building is a 297-unit, fully affordable, what we call HPD mix and match, for lack of a better term, family building, which will kind of run with an entrance on Lafayette, lobby here.
If you could speak into the microphone, please, since
sorry.
we're being... You can remove it from the... You can remove the microphone from the base.
Great. So there's a entrance on Turnbull. The building kind of runs around. And then the senior building has entrance on Lafayette. And then the senior building has an entrance on Turnbull. The senior building will have 133 units, and the family building will have 297 units, all fully affordable. There will be a underground parking entrance here, entering on Turnbull. So our plan is to replace all the current parking spots, all 220. So the plan is to restripe the eastern lot and create 159 new spots there. Have 42 spots kind of between the new building, existing building and new building, and then 19 spots, if needed, for the existing tenants underground.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Siegel? Yes, Vice Chair Knuckles.
Mr. Siegel, just if you would complete your description of the building, and then I have another question or two for you. You were just...
Yeah, so the the plan right now is to move the basketball court from the northeast corner to here. All the amenities that go with the existing building will remain, so the pools will remain only for these tenants. On the first floor, our plan is to enliven White Plains Road with retail. So the first floor will be almost completely retail, going back 100 feet. We'll add obviously light, camera, and our plan right now, I think, is probably to do local retailers, or that will be determined in the future by the market. There'll be separate lobbies for both the family building on Lafayette and for the senior building on Turnbull Avenue.
And could you just again reiterate the affordability levels?
Sure. The affordability levels, we have a kind of broad range of incomes. So in the senior building, there are senior building will have what's called a Section 8 project-based voucher contract. So all the residents will pay 30% of their income, but the income levels will be at, where's my slide?
27,000 and below.
There's 31% of the building will be what's called our space, which is either people who are currently or formerly homeless seniors. So that's 30% of the AMI. The balance of roughly 7% of the building will be at 50% of AMI. So that's a senior building. In the mix and match / family building, we have a broad range of incomes to kind of meet the needs of the borough president and the community itself. So there's a wide range of incomes. We have 10% of the units, again, are our space, which is the program for the formerly homeless. We have 10% at approximately 47% of the area median income, 30% at 57% of the area median income, and then 30% at 80% of the area median income, and 20% at 90% of the area median income, which frankly is where we think probably is pushing the market right there. The market's probably at or right around 90% of AMI.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions for Mr. Siegel? Yes, Commissioner Deleuze.
So you said that this is really a two-in-one project with the preservation of the existing Mitchell-Lama and then the new construction of the two buildings, one for seniors and the other for the affordable. So is the preservation part of this project for the existing building, is that really coming from another source?
It's coming from another source.
Okay, I was going to say, given these affordability levels, it didn't seem as though it was coming from this.
No, it's coming from another source. No.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions? Commissioner Levin.
As you're certainly aware, the borough president had some comments about features of this project that I imagine are not necessarily of your creation, but imposed by the financing programs. But and this is a point of view that the borough president has raised on a number of affordable housing projects that we've seen. So this is the first time we've said it, but this time he's particularly eloquent about the limitations imposed on unit sizes by the various government programs. And I wonder, given your experience of operating buildings like this in the neighborhood, if you have any comment on his recommendation that what we're creating here are residents that are too confining to be considered appropriate for a family.
Well, the borough president has two kind of comments. One is on the unit sizes themselves.
Right.
So recently, about a year ago, HPD lowered almost all the unit sizes down by roughly 100 feet. So a one-bedroom went from 600, 650 to 500, 550. I mean, frankly, I have obviously I have no discretion in terms of they have final design approval.
No, that I understand, but you have experience operating these buildings, so.
Do I have concerns?
What's your take on this?
Do I have concerns? Of course I have concerns. The reality is that affordable housing does compete with other units. I do have concerns, but I think we'll be okay. I mean, to my knowledge, there hasn't been a project yet which has been marketed. There's no experience in terms of how people are going to react to those units. So my main concern, frankly, is in the higher income units. So if we have 90% income units that are 550 competing against, so obviously have new amenities, new building, lots of nice things, new security, et cetera. So a lot of things to offer, maybe competing against one bedrooms that are, for lack of a better term, 700 feet or 750 feet. So I share his concerns, but I have no ability to change that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Siegel? Thank you. Our next speaker in support is David Karnofsky.
Good afternoon, David Karnofsky from the firm of Fried Frank Land Use Counsel to the applicant. I first wanted to congratulate Commissioner Cantor on his distinguished service, and I had the pleasure of you being my client for 15 years. It was wonderful.
Kept me out of trouble.
And an action is being brought in Queens Supreme Court to enjoin your retirement. I'll be very brief. Josh explained the development. The proposed development is located on a block which measures approximately 750 feet by 200 feet and is zoned R6. Under the rezoning, the westernmost portion of the block, 200 feet, would be rezoned from R6 to R8 with a C24 overlay, and the middle portion of about 340 feet would be rezoned from R6 to R8 as well. The remainder would remain R6, and there would also be a text amendment to designate the area as an MIH area. Now, the rezoning to R8 would permit two things to occur. First, it would facilitate the new development, obviously, but it would also maintain the existing Mitchell-Lama building in the middle of the block as zoning compliant, and that's because the existing building has about 372,000 square feet of floor area, and under the R6 regulations, it generates approximately 383,000, leaving very, very little for additional development on the block, despite the fact that the building occupies only a small portion of the block itself. So with the rezoning to R8, the existing building will remain zoning compliant even as the new development proceeds. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Karnofsky? Thank you. Our next speaker in support is Emmanuel Del Mori.
Good morning. Emmanuel Del Mori from Afghan Architects. I was here for questions, so if you have any questions.
Questions for Mr. Del Mori? Yes, Commissioner Delos.
Are there any sustainability features that you'd like to highlight?
Well, the project is going to comply with the Enterprise Green Communities from the HPD program, so it will pass and exceed the requirement from Energy Code. It will provide additional layers of insulation on the exterior walls, Energy Star boilers, and Energy Star appliances as other features in the building.
Thank you. Other questions? Commissioner Efron.
Hi. Are the materials used on the facade of the two new additional buildings, do they wrap around the entire building, or is it facade front and different back?
No, correct. That's an intention that we're trying to do is because this building is going to be seen from all sides. So yes, the material that you see here, it wraps around on the other building. We actually have another picture to show that. If you want to, I pull it out.
Oh, I don't need the picture if you...
Oh, no,
confirm
yes.
that's true.
All
Thank
the
you.
facades have been designed. It's just, we have it on another board. So the materials, yes, to do wrap around.
Okay.
Other questions? Thank you, Mr. Del Mori. And our next speaker in support is Norabelle Greenberger.
Good afternoon.
My name is Nora Bell Greenberger from Philip Habib & Associates. Our firm prepared the EAS for the project. Just here to answer any questions that you might have about the environmental review.
Any questions? Nope. You're off the hook.
Thank you.
Those are the only people who have signed up to speak, but if there's anyone else present who'd like to be heard, please come forward now. If not, the public hearing on this item is closed.
Borough of the Bronx, calendar numbers 25, 26, and 27. Calendar number 25, CD 11, C170445ZMX. Calendar number 26, N170446, ZRX. Calendar number 27, C170447, ZSX. Public hearing in the matter of applications for zoning map and zoning text amendments and for the grant of a special permit concerning 1776 Eastchester Road.
We will have a 10-minute presentation by the applicant team comprised of Adam Rothkrug, Mariela Salazar, Brian Newman, and Joseph Kelleher.
Thank you, Chair Lago, members of the Commission, and a special congratulations to Commissioner Cantor on his retirement. Our families go back a long way in this industry. I'm here today on behalf of Hutch Center and Montefiore Medical Center in connection with a series of zoning applications to permit to facilitate the construction of a 182-unit staff housing building to be owned by Montefiore Medical Center located on the property that is part of Hutch Center. The applications required include a zoning map amendment that has 3 changes. The first change on the project development site is from M11 to C42. The second part is on property that's not part of the development site but is adjacent to and includes a change from M11 to C42A. And the third change is a cleanup of a zoning line that was created when Hutch Center was formed and Marconi Street was created. The zoning line, current zoning line, was mapped on a former railroad right-of-way, not coincident with the street line, so we're cleaning that up. In addition to the zoning map amendments, we're proposing an amendment to the zoning text of 7470, a special permit for hospital staff housing. That would be specific to Community Board 11 in the Bronx. At the current time, to have staff housing off-site, you have to be within, the border of the zoning lot has to be within 500 feet of the hospital. Here's our hospital facility in the gray. We have a super zoning lot that extends to the Public Service Answer Call Center, PSAC building. So we don't conform with the current 1,500 square foot, 1,500 linear foot dimension restriction for the zoning lot. So we're changing that so that you need to be within 1,500 feet of the hospital building itself, which to me makes more sense, and especially dealing with an oversized zoning lot. And we are located within 500 feet of the actual hospital building. So finally, after that is amendment, special permit amendment to the language of the special permit, then we're seeking take advantage of that special permit. Montefiore Medical Center has been in the Bronx since 1897. They have 1,400 doctors, residents, subspecialty medical and surgical fellows, 17,000 employees overall. It's one of the top 50 employers in New York State and the largest employer in Bronx County. Currently, they maintain 100 housing units for their surgical residents. That's well short of the existing demand, which is over 350 units. The shortage of housing for their residents creates a problem in being able to attract and thereafter retain the doctors that they want to attract to serve the Bronx. And housing is critical in New York City and in the Bronx. This will provide a partial relief to their current shortage. Obviously, having your residents close to the hospital benefits for having them available in emergencies during inclement weather. And as we all know, residents are known to serve very long hours, so being able to get home quickly and get a good night's sleep is critical to their being able to provide service. The combination with the Hutch Metro Center is terrific. Hutch Metro Center is a thriving commercial and community facility development located on a 42-acre site that was formerly a state psychiatric treatment before it was auctioned by the state in 2001. Currently it has over 2 million square feet of commercial floor area. It includes the first new Marriott hotel that was built in the Bronx, a LA Fitness Club, Mercy College satellite campus, and a recently completed 12-story, 280,000 square foot ambulatory surgical center that Montefiore completed in 2014. As I said, the zoning lot includes the police call center. The proposed actions will facilitate the construction of this 7-story building, which is actually going to be built on top of an existing 5-story garage. So the total height of the building would be 12-story, about 210,000 square feet, designed with 77 studios, 105 one-bedrooms. The existing tax lot on which this is located, that's indicated down below there, currently has 917 spaces required and will provide 1,014 spaces if you just look at the tax lot itself. Hutch Center is one zoning lot, so as a zoning lot it has parking for over 4,200 cars with about 4,100 required. Though it's currently zoned M11, the majority of Hutch Center and the surrounding development consists of community facility uses and commercial uses in use groups 4 and 6. Metro North has announced it's proceeding with the creation of the Morris Park Station, which will actually have a ramp from pretty much the rear of this building across the Eastchester Road, which will provide easy access to the hospital for commuters both way and for residents of our building. And Hutch Center is actually working with Metro North on the design of this ramp. As I said, in conformance with the proposed revised special permit findings, the building will be located within 1,500 feet of the Montefiore Medical Center, which is about 500 feet away. We have representatives that are signed up to speak as well. Thank you.
Is the rest of the applicant team
Yes.
ready? Okay.
Absolutely.
We can use the balance of the 10 minutes and then we'll pose questions.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mariela Salazar, and I am a Government and Community Relations Manager for Montefiore. I may repeat some of the same information that Adam said, but here it goes. So Montefiore is one of the largest medical training centers for physicians in the nation. As Adam mentioned, we have over 1,400 intern doctors, residents, subspecialty medical and surgical fellows, all who are training in the Bronx. And those are the folks that we consider house staff. What we noticed through our efforts to recruit and attract the best and the brightest is that housing played a major role in an applicant's decision to decide where they would like to complete their residency. Montefiore currently has 100 hospital apartments, but those apartments are available through physician turnover. That typically takes between 3 to 5 years, which is the amount of time that it takes a physician to complete their residency. So the turnover is low, but our demand continues to increase. And so in order for us to remain competitive amongst other medical training centers, and of course to continue to retain our physicians, we really need the housing that this project will provide. Additionally, the proximity from the Hutch Center to our Weiler Hospital, along with other Montefiore departments, it would be great, as it's walking distance, along with the other amenities that are provided at the Hutch Center for our physicians. So thank you very much.
And did Mr. Newman want to be heard during the team presentation?
Good afternoon, Brian Newman, Newman Design. I think Adam pretty much stole my thunder, but maybe I could add a little bit to it. As far as the units, the 77 studios are approximately 480 square feet. The one-bedroom units are approximately 630 square feet. As far as the interior of the building, some amenities will be provided for the staff, such as laundry facility, a fitness center, and a community room common area facility, all within the proposed structure for the staff members to enjoy or utilize or go through their daily lives. As we stated before, the existing structure is an existing 5-story parking garage. There actually is a roof on that currently built, and that 6th level, it's not technically a story, but that would be the first level of the residential component of this. So thus 7 stories of residential housing would be added on top of this. The architectural will be that consistent with the rest of the Hutchinson Metro Center, white alucobond paneling, blue tinted windows for the residents. And essentially, as you can see here, you know what? There we go. Contortionist. Twisting myself. This portion from this section down is currently constructed. This, as of right now, is constructed, but the windows are not in place currently, so those would be removed. And you can see here that will be the addition, again, matching the rest of the facility.
And did Mr. Kelleher want to be heard during the team presentation?
Nope. We'll answer any questions. He's representative of the Hutch Center.
Perfect timing. Questions from the Commission. Commissioner Irfan.
You might have heard that I asked in the review session about, as this becomes even more desirable as a neighborhood, how you will monitor, or how Montefiore will monitor that these are in fact still in residence by residents. Are these leased apartments? How long-term are they?
Montefiore is going to own the units.
So Montefiore will own units, and how long will the residents stay in those locations? Is it annual turnover or every 2 years?
So they will remain in the apartment for as long as their residency is, so it could last between 3 years to 5 years, depending on the residency program and their specialty that they decided.
Okay, and will there be provisions so that nobody else can occupy the apartment unless they are actually employed by the hospital?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Yes, Commissioner Delahoo's.
This question may be for Ms. Salazar as well. But you mentioned that the gap that currently exists for Montefiore is over 300 units. This won't solve all of the need that you have. Do you have future plans to provide more housing for your house staff?
At the moment, this is our first plan to address the need. If in the future, clearly, like it was mentioned, we had over 350 applicants that needed housing, and this definitely won't reach to the 350, but I'm sure that in the long term, there will be other proposals where we'll look into housing for other residencies.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering, so now, besides the 100 that you already own and that you then make available to your house staff, does Montefiore lease on the open market apartments on behalf of those residents to make things easier?
No, right now the apartments that they find, aside from the 100 that we have, are on their own.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that hand. Commissioner
I'm sorry, it was struggling to get up in the cold over here. I wanted to ask about, it's just a zoning question, which is, I guess, after all, what we do here. So I shouldn't dismiss it as just a zoning question. The community board, I gather, had a concern about the split between the C42A and the C42. I think the zoning map is down there on the floor. Could you elaborate a little bit on that split condition and why it's appropriate to handle it that way at this time?
The community boards, well, actually, let me have this map, is better. Actually, the community board's concern was not about the split between the C4 2 in the C42A, it was really with regard to the inclusion of the C42A at all.
At all, right.
Yeah, so this is our site. Hutch Center actually owns one little part of this site, but it's completely unrelated. The C42 is not property that we own or control. City planning staff recommended to our office that be included to make it a more uniform area being rezoned from the M11, and we agreed with the city planning staff to include that property. The C42 area includes property that's owned by Calvary Hospital, and more notably, this is a large Stop and Shop supermarket. There are a couple other small parcels. So I think with the planning of the Metro North station as well as the surrounding development, I think city planning looked at it as an opportunity to provide a zoning that's more appropriate than the current M11. And I apologize, one thing I didn't mention, all of this property will be included in a mandatory inclusionary housing text change so that any housing here would be mandatory inclusionary. The staff housing is exempt from that requirement, but if it were ever to change, it would have to comply with the MIH provisions.
Thank you. And Commissioner Levin, in response to your very important zoning question, at post-hearing follow-up, we can address the rationale for the inclusion of the additional land. Other questions? Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, and congratulations again.
So those are the only speakers who have signed up on this item, but if anyone else is present and would like to speak on this item, please come forward. If not, the public hearing is closed.
Okay. Borough of Manhattan, calendar numbers 28, 29, and 30. Calendar number 28, CD 11, C170442ZMM. Calendar number 29, N170443, ZRM. Calendar number 30, C170444, ZSM. A public hearing in a matter of applications for zoning map and zoning text amendments and for the grant of a special permit concerning the National Black Theater.
Our first speaker in favor is Howard Goldman.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners, Madam Chair. My name's Howard Goldman. I'm Land Use Counsel to the applicant, which is NBT Victory LLC. NBT Victory is a partnership comprised of the National Black Theater, which owns this property, and L&M Development Partners, which was selected by NBT to be its developer for this project. I'll do a very short introduction, and then I really want to turn the mic over to Michael Lithcott, who is the son of the founder of the National Black Theater, Dr. Barbara Ann Trier, and is currently very involved in the theater's operations. And then after Michael, we'll have the architect, John Wolfling from Datner, show you the project briefly. So unless the commission wants, I won't go over all the actions again because I know Edwin Marshall covered them at review session. So there are 3 actions before the commission today. 3 ULURP actions. There's a zoning map change, there's a zoning text amendment, and there's a zoning special permit. And then there's one action to come, which is not before the commission today, which is a certification, a chairman's certification of a visual and performing arts bonus for the theater. And that's not before you today because the plans that are required to get that certification, as well as a sign-off by the Department of Cultural Affairs on a number of items, we're just not there yet. Down? We're getting close, and we expect to come back shortly, but the certification is going to follow the ULURP actions. With your permission, I'll go right to the questions that were asked at review session yesterday. The first question had to do with the transparency and the glazing requirement. Let me clarify that on the ground floor, we're not proposing any changes to the current zoning requirements for glazing. The retail will have lots of glass, and we're not trying to change it. There's a minimum 50% glazing requirement, and I believe we're going to be above that. Our request has to do with glazing requirements for the rehearsal space in the theater, which are part of the text, the special district text. But we've been having a hard time, both the developer, the architect, and the theater, figuring out how to comply with these before the plans for the theater are really finalized. So what we would like to do, what we propose to do, is to come back in the certification and address the glazing requirements above the first floor for the second and third floors. So that's how we think that should be handled. With respect to the retail, location of the retail, there was a question on that. The retail will be located on the ground floor, and part of it will be below grade in the cellar. We anticipate that a commercial tenant area on 125th Street will also have frontage on Fifth Avenue, activating that corner of Fifth Avenue and 125th Street. We're showing at this point, very conceptually, 2 retail units, one on either side of the theater entrance, but that's flexible. There could be more than 2.
I think at this point we'll turn it over to questions from the commission. Yes, Vice Chair Knuckles.
So Howard, where is the entrance to the residential? Is that on 126th Street?
Yes. Correct.
All right.
Other questions? Thank you. We'll turn then to our next speaker in support, Michael Lithgow.
Hi. Thank you very much. So nice to see you guys again. So many good friends. I was pretty moved that all this stuff written down. I was pretty moved by the speakers earlier today on the other projects. And I just want to say this is a demonstration project. There's a lot on our shoulders, not just for the National Black Theaters Project, but in 2008, the city really looked to create cultural infrastructure for 125th Street by creating something called the Special District, and within that, creating something called the Visual and Performing Arts Bonus. And over 10 years, no arts organization has ever gotten to use that bonus or make it work. And my mom worked very hard with Inez Dinkins and Barbara Askins and others to help bring that important resource to the city, and especially to the Village of Harlem, which is so close to us. And so we had to kind of do what the borough president referred to me as 3D chess to make this project work. We had to apply for a grant to help comply with MIH, so we got a $10.5 million grant from the city council and the mayor's office to help this project work. We're also applying for this ULIP application, and we're also applying with DCLA for what's called the Visual and Performing Arts Bonus to make all that work. Because no one's ever done this before over 10 years, and no one's ever really demonstrated to other developers and nonprofits how this can work, the sequencing of this project has been different and unusual. So at every step of the way, we have really had to get the details, as Howard spoke about, but there are some things that are core. So for example, we don't want to move the location of our entrance, and that was the request. We're a theater, not a dance company, so having rehearsals with light in your face, theaters are black box spaces, so it's unusual. So this project, unlike other projects, isn't one with an RFP or city land. It's actually a project with the National Black Theater, talk with Don Capocha, talk with other developers, and over a period of 5 years, pick L&M developers as a partner. We are 50-50 partners with them. I'm the managing member of the partnership. We approve all checks together. We approve all design together. We approve the location. And our primary goal as a partner is to make sure we have sufficient resources to build a first-class theater for Harlem and to really use this incentive the way that it was designed to be used. And so because of that, things like a parking waiver, for example, take resources away from the kind of theater that we want to have and we want to build. So this is not a situation where the trade-off is, does the developer make more money or less money? This is literally a situation where the National Black Theater, through our entrepreneurial arts program services as a home for hundreds of community-based, mostly Harlem and East Harlem-based organizations that are going to co-use this facility with us, many times on a subsidized basis, which also comes through the City Council through their subsidy. So I just want to thank you guys for your time and let you know that I think this is an important project, not just for us and our family and for the community of Harlem, but it's the first local arts advisory council. This is really going to provide a clear path for lots of other arts organizations that are in Harlem and want to relocate to Harlem for how to actually use MIH and the visual and performing arts bonus so that we can have much more vibrant arts and cultural infrastructure along the special 125th Street district in Harlem. Thank you.
Perfect timing. Questions for Mr. Lithcott? Thank you.
I just want to say that that's a great picture of your mother. She could speak right now.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Our next speaker in support is Sade Lithcott.
I actually had to go to the bid had a presentation she's doing with them, so she had to forget.
Fine. Our next speaker in support is John Wolfling.
Good afternoon. My name is John Wolfling from Datner Architects. I'd like to describe the current partee of the project, which is really, as Howard mentioned, very early in the process, so we don't have a lot of details about where exactly some of the program spaces are going to be, but we have a pretty good idea. So you can see in these images the basic programmatic stacking of the building. The base of the building is intended to be retail, with that located along 125th Street and 5th Avenue. You correctly divined that the residential entrance is on 126th Street. That's really the lower scale, more calm residential street, so that's the appropriate location for the residential entrance. And a lot of the actions that are part of the ULURP are really driven by the size of the site. The site is very tight. It's 85 feet in the east-west direction, 200 feet in the north-south. So things like parking ramps are would be very difficult to do. So that's one of the reasons for the parking waiver. You can see we're requesting additional height. That additional height is really needed to achieve the VPA bonus or the MIH bonus to utilize all that floor area. The middle section of the base is where the theater would be located. There may be some performing arts spaces or some performance spaces around the perimeter that may be appropriate to be glazed, but some of the spaces, like Michael had mentioned, the Black Box Theater and the theater in the round, those programs don't really want to have transparency, but that'll be part of a further development that we come back to the Commission on. You can see in this rendering, the idea of the ground floor and the glazing, and as Howard mentioned, the over 50%, that's the intention is to have a high degree of glazing, which is appropriate for the for the retail, really activating that frontage along 5th Avenue and 125th Street. The theater's entrance would still be along 5th Avenue where it currently is. I think that's an important part of the proposal, is to have it recognize the historical entrance and maybe be able to use that wide sidewalk on 5th Avenue. And there's you can see the residential portion above that podium. And that's really the extent of the description today.
Questions for Mr. Wolfling? Commissioner Levin.
This is probably a question I should have asked your preceding colleagues, but it strikes me that with so much of the program of this important site yet to be determined, I'm wondering what plans you have for continuing to talk to the community board, and I guess the borough president is curious to know this too, to have continuing involvement in the development of the plans as they get pinned down.
I'm afraid, Mr. Lithcott, that the question is presented to the current speaker.
Only because I wasn't swift enough to ask you.
Okay. Well, I really would defer to Michael. He's got much better handle on it.
If you could submit, actually, the response, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Other questions? Thank you, Mr. Wolfling.
Madam Chair, if I could ask a courtesy? No?
No, I'm afraid not. This was not a team presentation. We do have available signed up for questions, and these people might be able to answer Commissioner Levin's questions, both Lisa Gomez and then Josue Sanchez.
I would think Ms. Gomez might be able to illuminate my question.
Sure. Hello. May I please first say congratulations, Erwin. It's been I've learned a lot. I learned a lot from you when I sat with you, and when I sit in front of you, I always learn more.
Thank you.
So NBT is a long-standing member of this community. The dialogue has been with the community board, the borough president, many, many stakeholders long before this project came to be and will continue long after. Diane still here? Yeah, Diane's still here. She can talk about sort of our work with the community board, and I think that we as a company, and clearly MBT as a longtime resident and stakeholder in this community, will continue the dialogue.
Other questions? Yes. Commissioner Deleuze.
Hi, Lisa, how are you?
Hi, Michelle.
Perhaps this should have gone to other folks, but I'll just ask. So given that the programming is in flux, or that it's still to be determined, really, how is that process of determining what the program's going to look like going to happen in parallel with finalizing the building design and any financing requirements?
So let me just clarify. What is not in flux is that this is the current and future home of the National Black Theater. That is not open for discussion or debate. This is, NBT is our partner. There's no reason to do this project without a new home for NBT, but I think, and there would be, you find it hard pressed to find a person who would disagree that NBT doesn't need a new home. So while we are working through the VPA process, and as, you know, when we first started this process, we didn't know that we were going to get the DCLA funding. So we didn't know what we were working with. So it's an iterative process. We will continue to iterate through this stuff like we do on every project. And as the VPA becomes clearer and as those sort of aspects of it become clearer, we'll be designing the rest of the building. So that's what we can tell you now. I think, you know, we're operating in good faith as we always do, and we are more than eager to continue the dialogue.
Yes, Vice Chair Knuckles.
Good afternoon, Lisa. Good to see you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Vice Chair.
I know it's early yet, but with regard to the retail, given the place-making potential of this project, what kinds of retail do you envision? Is compatibility with the larger character of the building?
Absolutely. I think, you know, this is not the kind of project where we're going to really be able to pre-lease the retail at this juncture, and I don't think I need to tell anybody on this board that retail is really in flux right now. I think we're hoping for something that has some great synergies with the National Black Theater. We think this has the ability to be a really special place. You know, we think that things that are compatible with NBT's work and some of the groundbreaking work they've done nationally and internationally. And if Sade were here, she would tell you about all the exciting international programming that's going on. But we're hoping for things that are synergistic with the National Black Theater.
Other questions? Thank you, Ms. Gomez.
Thank you.
We also have available for questions, Josue Sanchez. Questions from the commission? Looks like you're off the hook. And then last but certainly not least, and thank you for your patience, our next speaker in support is Diane Collier.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Diane Collier, and yes, I am the Chair of Community Board 11. Seems I've been before you previously about a cultural project with similar uncertainties, heights, retail, and appropriate housing for our community. And I understand that Sade and Michael, in my absence at the July Land Use Committee, had some very intense drilling where they might have felt that this was going to be rejected. The Community Board, as you know from the submission, voted 30-1 in favor of this project. And I'm not going to go through all the reasons that was written down on the paper, because clearly you do read what we write. I will want to talk to you what you don't see on the paper, and that is the emotion tied to this particular project from the community, me being one of them. You see, NBT provides space for struggling artists, but they also provide space for displaced churches in the community. They provide space for community boards who have to do meetings at the last moment. They provide space for political campaigners who really don't have space and want to try to kickstart their campaign. Then they also provide the training and the incubator space that you've seen in the write-up and you've heard us talk about to those artists, to those young people who are often locked out of traditional venues. But most importantly, and I think you've read it, and you'll hear it, I wanted to convey to you the emotional testimony of those who pioneered with Dr. Tier the National Black Theater to not only be a cultural refuge, but also an art space and residence for African American artists. This was her dream. This was her vision. She accomplished it 25 years ago, and Michael and Sade have taken up the mantle. Michael and Sade, let me just say, I want to take recognition for you because you stayed when other next generation people left Harlem. You persevered. You gave back when you didn't have to, and believe me, I know it was probably to your detriment to give back. And now you're reinventing to sustain your mother's legacy. I applaud you for these accomplishments, but clearly you're not off the hook. Clearly, as you all noted in our submission, we said, you have to come back to the community board. You have to come back because, again, too many uncertainties. We want to make sure that at the end of the day that we will develop a particular project that meets the needs not only of the National Black Theater and not only of the developer, but the community at large. And so those are my comments and approval and I hope that you approve it as well.
Thank you, Ms. Collier. Questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's it.
So those are the only people who have signed up to speak, but if there is anyone else who'd like to be heard, please come to the podium now. If not, the public hearing is closed. And Madam Secretary, any other business before the Commission?
No, Madam Chair.
Then the meeting is adjourned.